what you need to know this morning, though. One specific team having one specific player at practice that we never expected to see in a football uniform again. One of the greatest stories in the 101-year history of the National Football League. Alex Smith, there's his family, spraying him with some sort of bubbly beverage. He is cleared to practice nearly 2 years after he almost lost his leg. He almost lost his life. Compound fracture. The bone comes out of the skin. All the bacteria from the skin gets inside the body. It was a horrible infection. He had an external fixator on after they almost amputated his leg. The slow process of getting himself back to this point and the determination to get here. It would have been very easy, Chris, for him to just say, oh, hey, I'm 35, 36 years old. I've played my football. I'm not going back out there and breaking my leg again. I'm done. It's amazing to me what he has overcome, the hurdles, the adversity, the obstacles, the serious life and death situation to get back to this point. That gives me chills. And he hasn't even won a roster spot yet, although with a $17 million guaranteed salary, I think he will. The question is, can he win the starting job? And I feel bad for Dwayne Haskins because I don't think there's a person in the country other than a family member of Dwayne Haskins that's rooting for him to win it. And even then, they probably wouldn't be all that upset if Alex Smith ends up being the starter in Washington.
Well, it is like the ultimate feel-good story. I mean, it's unbelievable where we are. I mean, you know, I don't know, a year ago, I wrote him off. I just thought, hey, it's over. You know, I hope he gets healthy. You just hope he can walk around and be a good dad and enjoy life. That's really where I was at. I didn't even, get the inkling that this was going to happen. And you know, you talk about the slow process. Mike, it's something I can, put my feet in his shoes a little bit after losing my spleen. You know, it is a slow process. You know, you kind of broke it down the right way. You go through it going, okay, let me just, make it through surgery so they can piece my leg together. Okay, let me just see if I can just start feeling normal and eat some food after surgery and hop around the house. And now you have an infection. Now you're going into, oh my gosh, okay, I hope I can just survive and live. And then it goes into, all right, I hope I can get better to where I can walk around one day and be a good dad and do those things. And then all of a sudden you're working out. And then you're going, oh, it feels pretty good. And you start to get more and more intense as you go through the process of working out. And you start to get little crazy thoughts in your head like, I feel pretty good. I think I might be able to play football again. I could do this. And this is what football players do. So I'm not shocked because I think Alex Smith is a lifer. Like, he's a guy that brings it home. It's part of his life. It always has been. And it's amazing that he is where he is right now. And, yeah, it adds a little interesting wrinkle to the whole Washington quarterback debate. They got a top 20 pick they'd like to go into the future with. But Alex Smith, he's kind of saying, wait, I don't want the future to be here quite yet. I got something to bring to the table. And I'm interested to see, how live is he? How can he hop around that pocket like we talked about? It'd just be interesting to gauge from here on out and see where it goes.
And, Chris, we got some mixed signals a couple of weeks ago because Alex Smith told ESPN he was cleared for all football activities, and then the team put him on the physically unable to perform list, which meant he couldn't pass a physical. But I think that what they were trying to do, and quarterbacks coach Ken Zampese explained this to reporters a couple of weeks ago, they wanted to monitor him. They wanted to watch him. They wanted to be sure he can protect himself. Even with the jersey on that says, "Don't touch me" in practice, it's still not a completely risk-free scenario because you could accidentally get hit. You've got bodies all around you. They wanted to be able to monitor whether or not he could still move like he needed to move, that he could protect himself when he needs to protect himself before they put him on the active roster. So this is the significance of him making it from the PUP list to the full roster. They've determined he can do those things. They've come to that pre-conclusion. He's going to be fine. We're going to put him out there into the fray with everyone else. And that's what's so exciting about this because now as the pads come on, the competition begins between Dwayne Haskins and Alex Smith. And look, Chris, if he can play like he did up until the point where he suffered the broken leg, he can win the starting job. This isn't a situation where it's like competing with a journeyman who's just there as a placeholder. This is Dwayne Haskins, the top 15 pick, competing with a top half of the NFL quarterback before he suffered the injury that they just assumed would never play again. It's the ultimate good problem to have, and now you just let The two, I hope, and I think and I trust that Ron Rivera will do this. We'll just go out and let them compete, and the better man will be the starter week one. And it'll be a fair competition, not about, well, we have to get the most out of Dwayne Haskins. He was a top 15 pick. No. Whoever is better should be the one who starts week one.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I'm not necessarily sure that'll be the reality of the situation, because I do think that Dwayne Haskins will be favored in this, right? Where, okay, yeah, we want him to compete, head-to-head and really have no bias that way. But it's hard to erase the bias of, this top 20 pick thing like you just talked about. And to also see maybe the bigger picture a little bit and the potential down the road and what the team could be. So that's where, I agree with you. I think they are going to compete. All I'm trying to say to what you said is just that I think if Alex Smith maybe just barely beats Dwayne Haskins in the competition, they're going to go with Dwayne Haskins. If Alex Smith, convincingly has a bunch of days where they go, whoa, okay, he made some good throws, and Dwayne Haskins is making some, bad decisions, interceptions, things like that. And Alex Smith has a number of days where he really, let's say, kicked Dwayne Haskins' butt, for lack of a better phrase, as far as the competition aspect's concerned. Then I think you see Alex Smith. But I think it's one of those things where I go, the tie goes to the runner, the tie goes to the first-round pick or the young guy here. But nonetheless, I think Alex Smith will have a legit chance. I wouldn't expect Ron Rivera and company to not let it be that way, really.
But there are factors, Chris, that I think cut against the normal bias that would favor the top 15 pick. For example, Ron Rivera wasn't there when Dwayne Haskins was drafted. There's no one really in the organization other than Doug Williams at a high level that has any ownership of that pick. And you look at it, Alex Smith is making $17 million this year, right? He is higher paid for this season than Dwayne Haskins is. And on top of it, the last time a young quarterback sat and watched Alex Smith for a full year, it worked out. It worked out pretty well.
It worked out very well,
right? It worked out pretty well for Patrick Mahomes to sit and watch and learn from Alex Smith, especially because here's the thing: Alex Smith is a unicorn in a sense that he's not going to be territorial. He's not going to be a jerk. He's not going to be standoffish. He's going to do everything he can, and I think last year he did everything he could to help the young guys learn how to play, even if it means he teaches them so well he's looking for another team next year, because that's precisely what he did with the Chiefs.
Well, yes. I mean, I agree with you. He is going to be the perfect soldier for your football team no matter what, whether he's the starter or, he's the backup for Dwayne Haskins. If he is that, if it does come to that, he will be, the ultimate role model. Teach him how to be a pro, how to practice, do all of those things. But I think, philosophical wise, right? It brings up a good question here about where you want to go with this Washington football team. What do you want to do? I think that's a real question here. Of course they haven't seen enough of Dwayne Haskins yet to really go ooh, I see this and I see that. Let's just go with them. They're still in probably the early phases of really trying to evaluate the player and the human being still. You know what Alex Smith is, certainly, but, Mike, do you want to start the new era right now, with Terry McLaurin, Dwayne Haskins, some of these other young weapons on offense? Or, do you want to, maybe not be as dangerous on offense, but certainly with a guy who knows how to run the game and do all those things, and maybe you win an extra game or two because he understands, how to play the position a little bit better? That's a big question. I mean, that really is. I don't know what the answer is to that. I would tend to go with the young guy if it's close, like I said, to build something for the future. But I can understand, going the other way with Alex Smith.
Here's the other thing, too, and we talked about this previously. The fact that Haskins played a lot last year makes it harder to put him on the bench.
It does.
But if he can't deal with that, that's one of the factors that tells you whether or not you truly have a long-term franchise quarterback. If he can deal with taking a back seat to Alex Smith, and if he embraces every opportunity he has to learn from Alex Smith, and if he does learn from Alex Smith, you have a better finished product in the end. And I almost compare it to, and let's just set aside last year. Let's treat Dwayne Haskins like he's a rookie, and as far as Ron Rivera is concerned, he is. It's easier to start with Alex Smith and then turn the page to Dwayne Haskins than to do it the other way around. If you go with Haskins and you say, well, you know what, it's really not working, our better chance of winning, we think, comes from Alex Smith, then you make it even harder for Dwayne Haskins down the road. And look, I just want it to be a fair competition. Whoever the better man is should play. And if it is close, it's going to be a hell of a decision for Ron Rivera to make, because there is going to be a strong degree of sentimentality. There's going to be a greater degree of interest. They are going to be viewed as a more sympathetic team at a time when they can use that if Alex Smith is the quarterback, Chris.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I mean, certainly, I never thought of it that way. But also Dwayne Haskins brings excitement to the franchise and stuff like that, too, where I think people want to see, that top 20 pick, right? I mean, few aspects I think jump out to me, too. Scott Turner, new offensive coordinator there, right? I mean, he runs his father's offense, Norv Turner's offense. It is more of an aggressive, push the ball down the field type of offense that I do think suits maybe a Dwayne Haskins more than an Alex Smith. I mean, the reason, like we've talked about before, the reason Alex Smith isn't in Kansas City anymore is because he was unwilling to push the ball down the field and be aggressive and make plays. That's really what it was. He was the number 1 rated quarterback in football when they decided to make a change. That just tells you that team thought, there was more there to be had. Even though you're still the number 1 rated quarterback, we believe there was more. So, and just to throw this in, we always act like, well, it always worked out for Mahomes. He had a pretty good, right? And I know it did. But who's to say he wouldn't have thrown for 40 touchdowns as a rookie and 8 interceptions?
Oh,
I'm just throwing it out there.
Right? Chris, you may remember this. I sat in this chair in the 2017 season when they were struggling in Kansas City. And the offense was sputtering, saying, put Mahomes in, put Mahomes in, put Mahomes in.
Right.
So, and here's the other thing, too. I think that it wasn't so much they thought they had gotten as far as they were ever going to get with Alex Smith. Brett Veach discovered Patrick Mahomes and sold Andy Reid on Patrick Mahomes, and the organization realized, hey, we have a guy here that's going to be a generational talent, that is going to be our starter well into the future, that is going to bring a Super Bowl to town, and also far they're right in just his second season as a starter. So I don't think it's an indictment of Alex Smith. The question is, how does Washington feel about Haskins in relation to Smith? And that's all.
That's all we don't know.
We don't know, and that's going to be part of the fun over the next 4 weeks and beyond. Already, Joe Theismann, who went through the same kind of injury that Alex Smith did in the 80s and didn't come back, Theismann told ESPN over the weekend that Alex Smith is already the NFL's comeback player of the year for 2020. DraftKings has Alex Smith and Big Ben Roethlisberger, the Steelers quarterback, tied for comeback player of the year odds, with the lowest at plus 300. I think Alex Smith still has to play. I don't think it's enough to be able
just to get back,
get on a roster and be the backup. I think he still needs to play, but I don't think he needs to play very much to clinch this award for 2020. The mere fact that he's able to play is stunning and makes him one of the all-time great comeback stories in NFL history.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I'm with you in the camp of, like, you got to play, right? I mean, as awesome as the story is, and certainly not trying to, like, delegitimize it or anything like that, like, yeah, it's amazing. But, yeah, for the spirit of the rule, yeah, it's about being back on the field and coming back and, contributing to your team that way. And we got some good candidates. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, between Alex Smith, Big Ben, and even Gronk down in Tampa, holy cow, that's a star-studded name. How about Bradley Chubb in Denver? I mean, here's another guy who is, a stud who missed last year. But it's amazing we're even having this conversation, just to go back to that. Because, I mean, really, where does it rank in your all-time ranking? For me, Joe Theismann will always be number 1, the most gruesome injury I've ever seen. There was that Napoleon McCallum injury, right? The Raiders fullback with Ken Norton Jr. on his leg in that Monday night game a long time ago. And then there's Alex Smith and maybe Tim Krumrie in the Super Bowl, the Bengals, 49ers. But, I mean, it is no doubt in the conversation for one of the most gruesome, gross injuries I have ever seen. And I just say, way to go, Alex Smith, to come back from that. You the man, and it just tells you what kind of guy he is in general.
Yeah, one of the most gruesome injuries we've seen and one of the best comeback stories we've seen. Next hour, we will be drafting the all-time best NFL individual comeback stories. We may exempt Alex Smith from that one because there are plenty of others. One thing I learned while thinking about it, brainstorming and researching, there have been plenty of great comeback stories. But if Alex Smith comes back, wins the starting job, plays most of the season, you can argue there's been none greater in the history of the National Football League than what Alex Smith has done.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.